I hereby call the February 17th meeting of the Philomathoregon Planning Commission to order. First up is the roll call. So we're going to go around the room and we'll probably start over with the city council representative.
Spencer Irwin, City Council Liaison.
Kyle Cup, Planning Commission.
Timothy Malat, Planning Commission.
Josiah Jessen, Planning Commission.
Mike Christosic, Planning Commission.
Chris Workman, City Manager.
Laura the Rock, Contract Planner.
Okay, the number 2 item on our agenda tonight is election of new chair. Since I'm the current chair, I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting. And the first item was welcome and introduction of new commissioners. And so we have one of our new commissioners here this evening. You want to tell us something about you and what's brought you into this forum? And
Well, I've been in, my wife and I moved to Philomath from Lebanon a little over 2 years, well, about 2 years ago. And I don't know, I get the news bulletin and the water bill every month, and I noticed that there were positions open in committee. So I actually applied for 3 committees because I'm thinking, what's the likelihood that we can get in? Right? So,
You're on 3 committees now.
no, I dropped one and I'm only on 3 that I applied for. This obviously is one. So, and so I was interested in being active in the city where I live and hope that I can contribute, make planning awesome. Something like that. So that's me. Well, anything else you'd like to know?
no, I mean,
I have a 32-year career at Hewlett Packard. So know a lot about objectives and things like that. So anyway.
okay. And for the record, Sarah Coulter Mitchell joined us.
Yes.
That's okay. That's okay. And who is the other individual, even though he or she?
Scott Ramsey.
Scott Ramsey.
Scott Ramsey's lived in town for a while. He actually was on the planning commission in the 90s, early 2000s maybe. So pretty familiar with processes, how things go. He lives up on North 8th Street in a historic home. It's one of the only homes in town that's on the historic registry. So he's big kind of history buff, history preservation, building preservation kind of personality, and owns Ramsey Fabrication, which is out by the airport in Corvallis, but lives here, has lived here in town, raised his kids here a little bit. So been here a long time, great guy. He's pretty active as of the last year or 2. He's been coming to the Philomath Community Networking Luncheon that we have, which is open to kind of all nonprofit organizations. He heads a nonprofit that bought the old College of Philomath building, which isn't the Philomath College building on Main Street. It's the College of Philomath building up on College and 10th Street. It's a big old white building.
Yeah.
So his nonprofit was responsible for acquiring that building, and they were applying for some grants and figured out they couldn't get very many grants because they didn't have very much equity in it yet. So they turned it into a rental, and they've been collecting rent now for the last, I should know this, he said 25, 27 years. And now they've got to where it's almost paid off. It'll be paid off in the next year or so. So now they're kind of revamping their efforts to restore that building and find a new purpose for it. So he's the head of that nonprofit that's kind of had this long-term vision and goal for that kind of still building on College Street. So they'll share that with the group, I'm sure, as well. That's kind of where his interests are. So. And I wish he was here to introduce himself. He's a great guy. Maybe he'll still join us.
All right. All right. Item number 2 is election of the chair and vice chair. And I guess I should go ahead and read this introduction.
Yeah.
At its first meeting of the year, the Planning Commission shall elect by ballot a chairman and vice chairman who shall be members appointed by the City Council and who shall hold the office at the pleasure of the Planning Commission. Background. According to Oregon Planning Commission Handbook published by the Department of Land Conservation and Development, VLCD, Oregon chapter of the American Planning Association's OAPA. In 2015, the responsibilities of the Planning Commission chair include conduct the meeting, the only task that is the sole responsibility of the chair, diffuse hostility, elicit relevant testimony, keep commission on track, ensure participation among all commissioners, lead commission to conclusions, define issues, promote planning, set agenda, joint function with the planning staff. The vice chair assumes this duty in the chair's absence. Commissioners have traditionally volunteered themselves or nominated another commissioner to serve as a chairman for the year. Once all nominations and volunteers have been made, a vote is taken. If more than 2 nominees or volunteers are received, it is recommended that you have 2 rounds of voting. The first round, each commissioner votes for their top 2 choices, and the votes are tallied. The 2 individuals with the most votes move forward into the second round of voting in the second round. I didn't read that right, obviously. Didn't sound right. Voting in the second round. Each commissioner has 1 vote and the votes are tallied to come to a decision. This 2-round process ensures the chair has been selected by the majority of the commission. Following the selection of the chairperson, the same process is repeated for the vice chair. The city manager will lead the commission through this selection process. All votes are recorded for public record. Are there any questions or comments? I turn the floor over to Mr. Work.
Yeah, so just stated, so, and I'll just add to that a little bit. We've had really good chairs in the past. Tim did a great job for us this last year. Doing just like it says, really, again, the responsibility to kind of help run and function the planning commission is all of your responsibility, right? Like everybody's to help keep decorum, everybody's to help encourage and effectively make sure that not one person's dominating the discussion, but you kind of know when to, okay, I've had my say, I'm gonna listen for a little bit and let other people have a chance to speak, and I'm not gonna argue with every individual person, I'm gonna take my time. So everybody kind of has that responsibility, but the chair is the primary person to kind of go from agenda item topic to agenda item topic. And then if somebody does get out of order, whether that be somebody from the public yelling and hollering at a, at a public hearing, or one of the commissioners that loses their temper because they get accused of X, Y, or Z, then we look to the chair to kind of help with the quorum and gavel where needed, and call a recess is usually what we recommend. And we'll have little trainings and things now. For a lot of you, this is still fairly new to kind of go through this public process. So we'll have some trainings. The city attorney will come in maybe once or twice a year and do some training with you, with us all together, and kind of help through that. But we use a very basic Robert's Rules of Order to kind of get through the process. We don't use it to weaponize or to take advantage or to get some type of leverage on a position of any sort. So, it's a very basic level Robert's Rules, and we really just try to work well together and making sure we've all heard, we all understand our positions, and we do the best we can for our community, right? So the chair, don't want to minimize the position of it, but really don't feel like the burden of a chair is such that you're going to spend an extra 10 hours a month working on this, right? In the past year, and Tim kind of correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, we'll kind of have a discussion a week or a week and a half before the meeting, say, hey, here's what's on the agenda. If there's a public hearing that's scheduled, we'll talk through that a little bit. Here's the applicant, here's what they're asking, here's what I foresee happening. I've already heard rumblings of some people that are opposed to it, and this is why, and we want to watch for this. So we'll kind of just talk through it a little bit, and we'll kind of re-emphasize. If it gets a little out of hand, we'll call a recess and take 5 minutes, let things cool down. If we have 50 people in the room, what are we going to do about time management? So we'll just kind of talk about the meeting a little bit ahead of time. Sometimes we'll bounce things off. There's 3 or 4 things on the agenda. It's like, oh, I'd recommend we do this first and this next. What do you think? Yeah, that makes sense. And so we'll kind of help set the agenda together, but by no means are you responsible for like setting up the agenda for the meeting, right? Mostly it's going to be led by applications that we receive, development code changes or zoning changes that are coming in front of the commission. things that the city council wants to see done that they've assigned the planning commission to look at and address. That's sort of it. Usually you're not setting your own agenda per se. Usually the agenda kind of gets set for you based on what the needs are, which is why we haven't met in 4 months, 5 months. How long have we not met? We've just not anything on the agenda. So, we could all sit around the table and look at each other, but without a lot to discuss, there's not a reason to meet. And so, which is a good time for me to segue in to say that some of the, and we've talked about this before, I believe, some of the newer provisions at the state level, some of the new rules and regulations coming down from Department of Land Conservation Development, in an effort to streamline the housing process, has meant that some applications, like subdivision applications that used to traditionally come to the Planning Commission for review, will no longer be coming to the Planning Commission for review. They're going to be a checklist, and it'll be administrative to say, did they do this? Did they do this? Did they do this? Then if they did all those things, then the application's approved. It leaves less opportunity for, I'm getting way off topic on select and chair, but I'm just trying to set the table for kind of what's expected. I'll just say that there'll be, I think, there'll be need for fewer meetings of the Planning Commission going forward, specific to subdivision approvals and other land use approvals that traditionally used to come to the Planning Commission. So you'll still see like your Class C variances, your kind of more extreme requests to vary from the development code, those will still come. Planned unit developments, if they want to really just kind of do their own thing and have their own plan and get that approval, that will still come to you. Any of the zone changes, development code changes, that all comes to you first before it goes on to the city council. So there'll still be opportunity to be having those meetings, but you won't be seeing subdivision applications, type 2, type plans, those types of things. The state's going to streamline that process so that's
So
less
Chris,
effective.
along those lines, I understand that's probably part of the reason why we haven't met in the last few months. My feeling is that it's probably maybe even more important that we do meet to be updated by the city on what is happening and it's not coming before the council or the commission. So that we are at least aware of what's happening in the city, and that'll help inform other decisions that do become plans. So I think monthly meetings are important, even if it's just for an update. A 30-minute meeting is better than a 2-hour meeting, but still I think we should not just sweep it under the rug because, Oregon, the state is, kind of mandating new processes, basically.
Yeah, and noted, and, back in September, there was intent like, oh, let's just not meet for 5 months, right? It was kind of on a month-by-month thing, and some of it was timing, like, it's not, we've got conflicts already, so we don't have anything really that important to bring, so let's just do it next month, and next month comes, and something else, so, but noted, I mean, typically, if we're not meeting every other month, every 3 months, just to give updates or something, then that's a good note, so taken. So with that, we do have some updates and things for you later in the meeting tonight, but for now, at least on selecting a chairperson, as Tim read, if anybody wants to volunteer for a position or if someone wants to nominate somebody for a position, which is really fun, especially if they don't know about it, you didn't talk to them ahead of time. I guess we'll open up the floor now for any volunteers or nominations for being the chair this year.
You want to do it again?
If the planning commission so feels, I would happily do it again.
All right, I nominate Tim a lot.
Any other nominations or any other volunteers? All right, let's get a formal vote on it. All in favor of Tim Malott for chair of the planning commission for this year, 1 year, through the end of December. Please cast your vote by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. So congratulations, Tim. I'll turn it over to you at this point for the vice chair.
Well, I don't know. Last year it was turnabout as fair play. Are you still interested in being the vice chair?
Let me say this. I don't think my schedule will be as It'll be a little more demanding this year, so I might be absent on a few more meetings.
Okay.
So what's our protocol if we don't have a chair or a vice chair to lead a meeting available?
You just appoint somebody else.
Okay.
The
The
chair
chair would
yeah.
appoint someone else. Okay. Yeah, then in that situation, yeah.
Is anybody else
That is-
interested in that? Well, you
I
two?
think I need one more year, then I'll be ready for leadership.
Okay. No, I understand.
No,
This is my third year, so, yeah.
I don't know about you, Kyle.
Or fourth, no, I'm in my fourth year. Okay, anybody, so we go ahead and call a vote?
Any other nomination?
Oh, yeah, I asked if anybody else is, any other nominations or anybody else interested? Okay, so we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor of Josiah as the vice chair, raise your hand, aye.
Aye.
All right. Public comments, I don't see anybody here for public comments. I guess we'll move on then. For the meeting minutes, we have 4 different meeting minutes. I've skimmed them. I don't take any exception to them. Does anybody else have any comments, concerns? And do I need to call for each one of these individually? Or if nobody has any comments, can we do it as a group?
The consent, they listed separately. Yeah, you could do a motion for all of them, which would be fine. You don't have
Nobody
to-
else- Okay, all right. If you want to spend a few minutes, let's take another quick look at them, that's fine.
If I can, Chair, just real quick, it's helpful and because I know we've got several people that are new and kind of to Mike's advantage as well here. It's helpful to review the minutes ahead of time. If you find like spelling errors, grammatical errors, things like that, you can send a quick email to the city recorder and she'll make those fixes even ahead of the meeting so that you don't really need to bring it here. If they're just like what we call a scrivener's error, just quick fixes. But if it's something substantial, like I didn't say that, or we had a whole discussion about this topic and it didn't get reflected in the minutes, those are things also that you'd want to probably email to the city recorder, also email the chair so they're aware of it. And you could even write something up ahead of time, say this is the kind of the summary I'd like to be in there. I'd like for there to be a summary about this topic included, or I'd like the record to be corrected to show that XYZ was the actual vote, not ABC. So any of that you can do ahead of time before the meeting is helpful, because when you do it in the meeting, it's a little bit of a scramble, especially if you've got 10 or 12 wording changes and we're all trying to follow along and keep track in the meeting, gets a little more difficult. So if you can preemptively go through minutes and make any of those corrections ahead of time, it's helpful. But typically you're still gonna, at this meeting, you could just say, I don't have any corrections, but I sent some scrivener's corrections to the city recorder already to take care of, done, right? Or this would be the appropriate time to say, well, on this set of minutes, on this page, this line, I don't think this is correct, and we want to make a motion to fix that. And this would be a time to go ahead and make the fix, vote on it, and we can vote to approve the minutes. The last thing I'll add on minutes is you can vote on minutes even if you weren't there for that meeting. You can still review the minutes and you can still approve them today, even if you weren't at the meeting last month or the month before or whatever. So Mike, even though you're new, you're on the commission, you can vote on any topic that comes before you. It doesn't mean that you have to be sitting here when that meeting took place. You may have less insight, but it doesn't take away your right to vote on a topic just because you were at that meeting. It's just like any other topic. So anyway, that's my 2-minute training on minutes and getting those approved.
A couple questions on minutes. How are these transcribed? How are these minutes that we're approving created?
They are action minutes. So the intent of action minutes is to capture attendance, motions made, discussion leading up to decision, and decisions that were made. There is a full audio recording and video recording that gets posted to YouTube, and then the city keeps a full digital version of the audio file as our permanent record. And so we went to action minutes several years ago just to save staff time. It leads to a lot less discussion surrounding minutes and who said what and how they said it and what the tone of their voice was when it was said and all those types of things. So they were taken from I think the city recorder watched our watched our videos or watched our meetings and just took kind of action minutes.
Gotcha. Okay. And then if we approve all these minutes, is that going to catch us all the way up to this year? Are there any other outstanding meetings we need to approve?
This will be everything.
Okay, all right.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the May 13th, May 19th, June 16th, and July 21st of 2025 meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Chair, if I could, just for the record, since we're using AI to help with the minutes going forward, so we don't have to watch the entire length of it. We'll look at the AI summary of the meeting. So as you're repeating, if you could repeat who made the motion and who made the second.
Okay.
So motion by Commissioner Mitchell, seconded by Commissioner Cup. All
Right.
those in favor, just so we can get it on the record a little better, because AI doesn't recognize voices very well. It does okay, but not great.
Okay. So noted.
Okay.
All right, moving on to staff updates. South 16th Street lot line adjustment update. Have we talked about this before?
We've touched on it, I believe, but I'll let Laura kind of give, because there are some new folks here, so maybe give brief history, how we got to the problem, and then we'll.
Actually, yeah, can we back up, even though it's not on the agenda? Can we
Introduction of our new
can we have, yes, introductions and just some, also some ground rules that she's playing by and that we need to play by working with her and the like? It may take a little while, but
Introduction first.
All right, that sounds good. Well, yeah, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Laura LaRock. I'm the contract planner for the city of Philomath. Came on board just a few months ago. And so background, I've always been in real estate, started out in real estate sales, moved to development. And then when the sales kind of economy crashed, went back to graduate school and have a master's in urban and regional planning. From there, I've worked on multiple jurisdictions. I was with the city of Sweet Home. I was a senior planner at the city of Albany for many years. And then kind of COVID changed things and I decided to try out the public sector. So went with the engineering firm for at least a year and then just decided to branch off on my own. So now I'm kind of went full circle and joined local governments. I do contract planning for a few different municipalities in Oregon and still work on private development on a kind of a minimal basis. So I'm very happy to be here, happy to meet you all today. It's been a pleasure working in the community so far. Had the chance to kind of dig into your development code and process a few applications and start to get familiar with things. So it's been a great opportunity.
Structure-wise, just kind of differential from the differences, I guess, in what we've had in the past. So Laura is contracted, so we're paying her by the hour as opposed to having somebody here just full-time, if somebody walks in the door or not. So, you know, we're taking advantage of having her just work when we need her to work on things that we need her to work on, which is great. The downside is she's not here in the office, so if somebody does walk in, they get a phone number to call her and set up an appointment, set up a time frame, and she schedules all that on her own through Zoom calls, phone calls. The office here is available if it's somebody local, and it's easier to come here and meet. We've had several pre-application meetings where we've met here, and she's organized those, set that up with Public Works, engineering, everybody, and we all meet here. Or some people come in on Zoom. So, I mean, it's functioned really, really well. Again, the only real disadvantage at this point is just somebody walking off the street that wants a quick 10, 15-minute conversation. And I'm still doing those with folks, all right? Give them basic, here's the application you'll need, here's what you need to get in order to get to the point where you're ready for pre-application. When you're ready for that, contact Laura and go from there. So I don't think we've seen any drop off at all. In fact, I think that the service we're getting now is better than we've had it in the 12 years I've been here. So really, really happy with the way things are going. If you missed the bantering before the meeting, I'm playing catch up on her, trying to keep up with her, not the other way around as we've been for the last several years. So it's a nice change, but I need to get in my emails and stay caught up because she's moving. It's great. It's really nice to have a planner that I'm not training as we're doing the planning, right? To have somebody come in or know what they're doing, and she's teaching me stuff every time, so it's great. It's nice to have a professional in our corner. So she's doing good. There's your review.
All right, that's good.
So anyway, so if you need to get a hold of Laura, you have questions, I would ask you to go through me, talk to me first, because she is on a contract basis and we don't want a bunch of billable hours that I didn't know anything about. So I do keep that pretty close. So if you have a question, something comes up, just reach out to me. If it's something I can answer real quick, I will. If it feels like something we need to talk about planning commission, we'll put it on the agenda. If it feels like something that's appropriate for Laura to give you a heads up about, then that's fine. I can release some time for you to do that as well. But yeah, it's been well. Is that enough? Any questions for Laura?
Yeah, well, first, welcome, Laura. Good to have you here. I just had a question about, I think, a while back, so just trying to play catch up, that we had received a grant or some type of award from the COG, or the Council of Governments, to do some initial plan or code amendment.
That's the next agenda item.
Right,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to make sure that if we could get an update on
Yep.
how that went and where Laura fits in
Yep.
with that work as well.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
We'll touch on that right after 16th Street stuff.
All right, let's go ahead and address 16th Street.
Well, that's good. Yeah, so this is, I think, one of the first projects that I was able to get started on. So for those who do not know the history, a platted subdivision, so lots were created. And during that process, it was discovered that where the markers were put on the ground versus what was recorded on map did not match. So several property lines were off, not by much, but enough where there was a discrepancy created that needed to be resolved.
Okay.
Yeah. So because it affected an entire street, there's multiple property owners that share a property line going along a street. And the process is that you formally have to approve a property line adjustment to resolve it. Once the property line adjustment itself is approved, and what we're looking at for approval there is, does the lot width meet, is the setbacks, are those things all still met by this approval? The process goes from there to record usually a final plat. Well, in this case, folks already live on site, structures are built, there's mortgages that are put in place. So in order to resolve that, had to go through and collect title reports, make sure there wasn't any sort of encumbrance on the properties, work with people's mortgage companies to get partial release of, which is just essentially releasing their mortgage control over a small section of land that gets adjusted to the neighbors, having the neighbor lender accept that piece of property into their financing, create some legal documents, so a deed and some map exhibits to show what all is occurring. So that process happened. There was, I think, 14 different people that were involved in that process. Over the course of the last several months, we were able to go through those approval process to adjust property lines, get the documents created that needed to be done, and we started to record those. So about half of the property owners that are affected now have come in and signed before a notary on a new deed that gets recorded with the county. There's still a few that are waiting for pieces or release from their title companies, and either those are underway or expected in the next couple months. And then I think there was only just maybe one that's just on hold for various reasons. So a lot of action, involvement in that project, but things are starting to go smoothly, and just continue to check in every few weeks to make sure that folks are reaching out to their title companies, getting the information they need so we can wrap up the rest of the owners that are involved in that.
This is one of the requirements of phase 2 of Mill Pond Crossing subdivision. This has to get wrapped up and resolved before we're going to allow movement into phase 3. And so it's high on the list for the developer, but really kind of out of the developer's control because it's up to the property owners to look to their lenders and all that work. So I committed after about a year and a half of unsuccessfully herding cats. Laura's done the impossible and she's herded all the cats and she's got them lined up. And we also went into smaller batches, and we also very proactively took a stance to make this happen as opposed to waiting for the developer and the property owner to work this issue out. which did not work. And so instead, we're committing Laura's time. Some finances, we're prepaying for some things that we'll get reimbursed from the developer later. So the city's taken a much more proactive approach to helping these existing Philomath residents get their lot line issue resolved. It wasn't their fault. They moved in and then discovered the lot line didn't meet the setbacks. What do you do? It's kind of a nightmare for scenario for some of them, but again, they just wanted to buy a house and now they got this issue where they're not compliant with the city's development code. So again, Laura's done a great job of getting everybody herded together, figuring out what documents need to be done, making it understandable for the homeowners, and getting those processed through. So my hope is within the next 3 to 6 months, we'll have all of them resolved and we can move forward and the developer will be able to go forward with that next phase. I've always cautioned that taking care of the issue doesn't necessarily mean that the 12th lot line is actually adjustment, but that there's money sitting in an account for the city that we can continue to work with those property owners to do it. So as soon as we've got money in the account to pay for and offset those expenses, we're gonna let phase 3 move forward. Because then at that point, again, we're just reliant on those property owners to do what they need to do. It's not really fair to the developer to be hung up moving forward to the next phase because you got a couple property owners that are lagging behind a little bit. So anyway, but that's a big to-do project on the list of things to do before phase 3 of Milton Crossing. So, any questions on those lot line
Yeah,
adjustments?
was this a clerical error or the original survey was incorrect or went from survey to recording and somehow somebody messed up or?
As we understand it, the stakes that were used to set the property lines were done with a handheld GPS rather than an actual surveyor going out and setting those stakes. So they were off by, that GPS handheld's good, plus or minus a foot or two.
Yeah. If that.
Were there any financial impacts to the residents, like their own
So
out-of-pocket
the
expenses?
developer took ownership on the error and said, this is our mistake and we'll pay for everything. Of course, we can't compensate for headaches and time loss and lost sleep, but for anybody who's losing some of their property, there's compensation for a loss of property. If everything's east and west, so if your northern boundary has to come down 3 feet and your southern boundary only goes down a foot, you've lost 2 feet of the depth of your property. So there is a compensation that's being offered for any loss of actual property. And the developer is paying for, again, new legal descriptions, new deeds, preparation, any new easement or any new title reports that need to be done. So the applicant has admitted fault and willingness to pay for all of those things. But there's still time, right? And that's the frustrating part, right? Is we can't reimburse people for their time and have to deal with an issue. It's like an insurance claim or anything else. You never can compensate for your time and the headache. So yeah, so no, not financially. It's just been a pain in the butt for a couple of years and trying to get figured out what exactly needs to get done.
That was it. I was just curious how the compensation for the loss of property was gonna go, because I remember that homeowner that was here was trying to build their fence and had to go through, and that kind of alerted us to this issue in the first place, and
Yeah, the developer agreed to pay for moving fences, which essentially means reconstructing fences, right? 'Cause you can't pick up a fence and move it. It's concrete in the ground. So he agreed to rebuild a couple of fences where a fence got built on the old property line and the new property line is required. Developer's been on the hook for moving the fences or building new fences. So yeah, there's been no negative financial impact on the property owners.
And all the setbacks are fine. Nobody's gonna need a variance.
One took a variance and that one went through and got approved already.
Yeah.
That was the fence one.
No further ones though.
So I think a total of 3 that sometimes we processed the property line. One just corrected the error through a variance application without adjusting the line.
Yeah.
And then there was 2 property line adjustments that also had a variance for very minor setback encroachments.
They were administrative. If it's within a foot, then there's an administrative variance that gets approved. But
Some of them was just maybe a corner, so not the whole.
yeah, thank you. Good work.
All right, next is our code amendment updates.
Yeah, this was just verbal, so nothing in the packet on this one. We were told, so the money that we got was for Department of Land Conservation Development at the state. It was money that they were going to give the city so that we could hire Cascade West Council of Government planners to do our housing code audit. And the audit would obviously include not just the audit, but also corrections and recommendations. So it's looking at our current code. The planning commission spent quite a bit of time a couple of years ago now, a year and a half, 2 years ago, reviewing all of that code, making recommendations for some zoning changes, making some changes for allowed uses, looking at, anyway, a number of different things. So that's the kind of updated code that COG will be given to do the audit of. We're not going to give them our old code, we're going to give them the new code. And they'll be looking to make sure that it's compliant with all the new state rules that have come out through DLCD, mostly focused on housing, affordable housing, workforce housing, all those trigger terms that are being used in the state rules now to make sure that cities are actively trying to provide housing of all different types, with the target obviously on smaller homes, more affordable homes. So, so that's where we set as of October last year, was, hey, we've got this money. It takes a while to get the contracts together. By the end of the year, we'll have the contract to you. So first of the year, COG could start working on it. I got ghosted and I haven't heard anything from DLCD since November. And in November, we're still working on it. There's been a little delay in getting contracts together. I did reach out this morning to my contact there that we did all the meetings with, saying, yep, this is how it's gonna work, and not hear anything. So they're busy, they're behind. I have read a couple news articles where DLCD has been behind on some of their contracts, and it's not even DLCD. It all has to go through, I think, DOJ. All those contracts have to get reviewed by an attorney at the state level before they get approved. So we're waiting at this point still. COG planners are ready. They've got a great planner that's going to be solely tasked with doing that audit and review for us. He emails me about once a month. Is like, hey, I'm ready to go. Hey, I'm ready to go, and not there. So hopefully soon, but I don't have a good update as far as time frame. Other than once we hear back from DLCD, we've got a contract. We've got kind of ready to look at all of the housing stuff.
And the contract for the grant funding.
The contract for the grant funding with the state.
Okay.
And it's a simple, we agree to give you this money and you agree to have this output. Yeah.
Okay.
You said something in your description where you're taking our new code, where we've not gotten a new code in its final, or even a final draft form for us at this point in time.
It's in pieces. So I've sent pieces to COG and they started sorting and pulling stuff together. And then we found out we were going to get this grant money. So they've kind of put a pause on that back in October, till the grant money came through. So instead of billing us, they would be billing the grant funding. It's still going to come back to the planning commission in a draft form. What they got was all of the work that we did on the zoning, the allowed uses, that table that we had with setbacks and all that. There were several questions and concerns about lot size and undeveloped space and whatnot. So they'll be reviewing all of that and coming back with some recommendations for us on those sections. So
next question. I can't remember what meeting it was. It was probably somewhere, it may have been one of the minutes. I didn't read it in that detail. When we do get this back from these planners that are being paid for by the state, will it be clear in the documentation what is administrative and what is legislative?
Yes.
Just like when we went through, there was the epiphany that came out of that meeting 9 months ago. I personally don't want to spin my wheels and not realize that something that's been presented before me has been done at an administrative level, and the legislation does not support that. And that we have an opportunity to bring that to bear as to how we move forward with that.
Yeah, one of the benefits of the audit is going to be that they're going to be required to reference either the DLCD directive. There's very little this is coming from state statute, right? It's not legislative, it's the legislation, it's the executive order from the governor gave DLCD permission to update the rules to provide more housing in a more direct, streamlined process, and DLCD went, woohoo, and started punching out all these new administrative rules. So there's still rules, right? We still have to follow them, but there's what we were caught up with there. Some of that was the minimum language or the minimum requirement for the rules, and then there was the recommendation that went beyond that. So we'll definitely be asking for citations of where's the rule written that says we have to do this. If you've got recommendations, those will be identified as recommendations from DLCD, just like DLCD has a model code language or a model code that they put out there, right? And it's all of their recommendations for the model code. But very little, I mean, some of that is actual required from statute, but a lot of it's just their recommendation for what they think Philomath City should grow to become, right?
Right.
Some of it I like, some of it I strongly disagree with because it's way too metro-centric for a rural community like Philomath, right? As much as we would love to have a big bustling downtown with high rises and bakeries and, 5 stories of people living above it, that's not why people move to Philomath, right? Because that doesn't exist in Philomath. So why are we trying to force that type of development in Philomath, right? So, but the state will tell you that's what we're trying to do because we want to try to preserve all the natural habitat. We want to try to increase density and we want to, save all this money and do all these things, which to a certain extent you agree with, but to the nth degree, maybe you don't agree with it as much, right? So we'll be sorting through requirements versus recommendations. We'll also be identifying what were the kind of discussions that came out of the code directly from conversations that came from the Planning Commission, to make sure we identify that as well as kind of new language that came out as opposed to the old language. So they have our original code, they have the new language that we worked on that's kind of in pieces, and then they'll have all the DLCD rules, and they'll be kind of merging those 3 documents.
So fundamentally, at this point in time, the process is a dead stop.
Until we've got grant money in place to pay for the audit.
And if we don't get the grant money,
We'll need to budget money and do it. So, we need to know in the next month or 2 if we're gonna get the grant money or not. There's been nothing at the state legislature that's pulled that money back. It's there. DLCD has the money. It's literally just, I don't know what the delay is other than DOJ or DLCD. It's sitting on somebody's desk somewhere. So, but it's not like the money is in jeopardy of getting pulled at the state level. It's there. It just needs to get allocated. Well, it needs to get distributed.
and was the amount of money that is available from the state enough to complete the task at hand?
Yeah, it should be. Yeah. That was never called into question. It was more, we're gonna pay for the audit, period. And then there was some discussion about what that was gonna cost, and DLCD said, yeah, no problem. They have money set aside for this task for other cities, right? We're not alone in having to comply and develop or change our development code to comply with all these new rules. And so one thing that was nice, I don't know if it was at the governor's level or the DLCD administrative rules level, is that when they started making all these changes to rules, they also set funding aside in their budget, the DLCD budget, to help cities do code audits, to update their codes to comply with all these new rules. So we're one of many cities that applied for and got this grant funding, and I think we're one of many cities that's still waiting for the funding to come through.
Here's my concern. we have been working on the code for years. And it's an elephant you can't eat in one bite. So we have been taking it in chunks. Like you mentioned, there are pieces that we have kind of reached a finalized state. We've voted on them, we've approved them, they're ready to go. They're ready to get injected into the final code. And then they moved the goalpost on us. You know, there was, you know, new executive orders, laws changed at the state level. So we went back and we looked at some of those sections again. My question and my concern is, do we feel that the state of the new code is such that we can just hand it to COG and they can do a process and then they hand it back to us in close enough to final form? I'm concerned that like, we're gonna give it to them and they'll come back with a bunch of suggestions and changes and things that we're gonna have to review and vote on, and then it'll go back to them and there'll be a bunch of back and forth. And we should be concerned about running out of money, you know, if that process takes too long. But also if the process takes too long, I'm concerned about the goalpost moving again, that we'll have to incorporate new changes. And, you know, that's hard to predict. But so here's my question is, how do we feel like the state of what we've done so far is far enough in the process that, you know, the back and forth review process we're going to have with COG is going to be minimized? Or is there more work we can do now, just within the commission, to prepare that package better for COG? Is that time worth it? Yeah, it sounds like we have some time, like while we're waiting for the grant money to come through. Or have we done everything that we can do at this point?
Yeah, I think a lot of the sections that you vetted through, COG's gonna write it out, put it into track changes version, and we're gonna be set. You're gonna come back, yep, I remember this, yep, looks like what we talked through, good.
Mhm.
There's gonna be other sections of it where it's new language from DLCD, and it's the first time you're gonna see it.
Mhm.
And we'll need to talk through those a little bit more. But I think the benefit of having the COG staff running it is they're familiar with the language, and they're gonna be able to tell you, this is the required code, here's the recommendation, where's Philoma stand, do you want minimum required, recommended, do you want your own language? Do you want us to come up with something different, we'll bring it back to you. But I don't think we're gonna be, you know, wordsmithing the document with 8 people in the room. I think it'll be, we like it, we don't like this, we like it, and we'll bring back a new version. So I don't believe that there's a lot of benefit in looking at additional sections right now, because I think it's gonna be a lot better time spent for having the audit done first and then us reviewing the audit than it will be for us to be reviewing more sections, then it gets audited, and now we've got kind of conflicting things looking at each other, so.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I also feel like there's still a bunch of stuff undone. There was a lot of code language that we talked about creating, maybe borrowing from other municipalities. You know, one example that comes to mind is like a performance spec for area lighting, street lighting, but also we had talked about noise and dust and that kind of stuff that it's really hard to write a code for. So we had talked about a performance spec. That's just an example. But I know there was other stuff like parking is a big can of worms that we didn't really, I don't feel like brought that to the finish line. So I hear what you're saying, like maybe we just give it all to COG and let COG give us like, you know, a fully reviewed version back for us to then go through the process with. Yeah, I'm just concerned that like we're leaving too much undone, like leaving work for COG to do that we could be performing right now and not have to pay for them to insert that later and possibly create more time in the process.
Yeah. I hear you. I guess the difference in there would be who's spending that time to do all the prep and hold the meetings. And I mean, we're spending that time doing that. That means that Laura or I are spending that time doing that. And right now, Laura and I don't have time to be doing that. with
Yeah,
all the
I understand.
stuff going on.
Yeah, and I don't want to get myself in too much hot water, but I had even, discussed, well, just give me the whole code, and go through it and format it and give something to you guys to review that you could put before the commission for us to review. It doesn't have to go to a vote or something, but it's, and I know there's concerns about like, well, we can't collaborate outside of this meeting on it, so that's time constrained. And so, yeah, it's tricky from all different angles, but I don't.
Yeah, I think it's on the residential, again, I fully anticipated 5 months ago, COG would start working on the code in January,
Yeah.
right? And we're just still on the contract, and we don't have the grant lined out, and so we're not. Here we are, middle of February, we don't have it. So, I was anxious to get that going as well. I've got property owners that are calling saying, hey, we talked last year and we were talking about having this done by the end of the year. And then you said you were getting some grant money and where are you at? I'm like, yeah, I'm waiting, right? So it's like I told you June, July, now we're thinking July, September, maybe by the end of the year, we'll have this gone through the public process because you've got to approve it, city council's got to approve it. And there's some substantial changes, especially with the zoning map, they're gonna have significant impacts on
Comp plan.
people, right? So we don't wanna shortchange that public hearing process and people's opportunity to voice their concerns about it. So I hear you. I guess if there's anything, is that the COG is just doing the residential code. Commercial and development code, we are still gonna keep that in-house, and I do intend to have Laura start looking at that. I've committed to her, I was gonna get that to her a while ago, but frankly, she's been busy, and I know we're not her only client. But I will be packaging that and getting that to her, so she can be looking through it. Some of it's like the administrative stuff. If you remember, we went through and looked at like, what type of application are certain things, type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. Some of those rules have changed, as I talked about earlier in this meeting, so that section could be updated. Development review versus site plan review, some of that language could be updated. So there's work there that can be done that's really more commercial, industrial, but it's gonna affect residential as well.
Yeah.
But some of that work we are gonna start working on internally. And that can be coming before you while we're waiting for COG to be doing their thing with the residential. So I do think we'll have updates to bring to you, but it's not gonna be residential, it'll be focused on commercial industrial stuff.
You probably already have been doing this, but is there any advocacy or anything that we could do to speed the contract process up? Or is it like, do you call every month and say, hey, we're working through this stack? I know sometimes it's helpful to do that, sometimes it's counterproductive to do that,
Yeah, it
so.
could be counterproductive this part. I mean, I just need to know, and I wish I had an email response, even let me know why the delay was there, whose desk it was sitting on. I just don't know at this point, but I've talked to our rep at DLCD. They were gung ho about the planning. Yep, we'll get this to you. As soon as we get it through DOJ, we'll get it to your desk by the end of the year. And so, there is a process, and the process is pretty clear. I just don't know why there's a kink in the process right now. But I don't think, a pressure campaign is gonna help anything on that right now. But I will, again, by the end of the week, with Ryan, see if I can hear back from him on what's going on. I've followed up monthly as well. It's not like I'm calling him every other day either, it's kind of like, hey, where are we at with this? And then 4 weeks later, I haven't heard back from Ryan. Hey, Ryan, where are we at with this? So I haven't been overly diligent and pestering him every week either, just because I know those things could take some time, but it would be good to get a response at least. So I copied a few more people on this week's email than I did the first time.
Cool, thanks.
On the commercial side and on path moving forward, since we now have a planner and seems as though Laura's working out and we have a good relationship, is it unreasonable to request some sort of a schedule moving forward on the commercial side? When are we going to get when can we start to see some drafts and put it on a schedule and work to that schedule. Because again, I'm starting my fourth year, and we've been doing this since the month I started on the board. And yeah, there's a lot of other things that come up. There's squeaky wheels, there's projects that they've got property lines in the wrong place that has to take time and effort. But it seems like there hasn't been an opportunity to put a priority on this. And I'd like to request that by our next meeting, that we have a planned schedule ahead of how we're going to do specifically the stuff that we have control over. And if that's the commercial, that's the commercial. We don't have control over a DLCD as far as the residential is concerned. But I would, from a standpoint of the time and effort that I've put into this process, I'd like to see some result by the end of the year. I remember when we were first getting into this, oh, we're going to see results in 6 months, or we're going to see results in 4 months. I really want to see results by the end of the year. And if we can have a plan forward, we're going to take a look at this section of the different types of reviews. We're going to get a draft back to you in March and April. We're going to get a draft back to you, updated draft back to you for the different tables for the different uses under commercial. And this is when we're going to get that draft. We're going to get a draft back to you for dealing with setbacks, dealing with landscapes, dealing with lighting, dealing with and just put together, because as a program manager for multi-millions and billions of dollar jobs in my career, unless you plan, it's not going to happen. Something else is going to come up. And we know, we're all aware that also over the last 3 years, there's been some personnel issues that, as I say, it looks like we've come to the end of those challenges. And so I would like to ask for that moving forward.
Yeah, that's the intent. So, I mean, getting Laura onboarded, getting her up to speed on things, taking care of some squeaky wheel issues. So that's where we've been the last couple of months. But yeah, I mean, between now and your next planning commission meeting, I'll make sure that Laura and I sit down and go through that and put some timetables together on kind of scheduling that out a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I hear you. It's frustrating for me as well. I mean, I thought this was gonna be a 12-month process and get it out there and get out to the public, and here's some concerns, and
36 months later,
yeah,
we're still
there we
here.
are. So, well, but I think to your point, I mean, we've gone through 3 planners.
Right, we have,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And hopefully
absolutely.
2 of them didn't have the experience or the breadth to be able to really carry that ball, right? And so that's why the ball didn't get carried.
Yeah. No, and that's why I say it was personnel. I recognize that. I recognize that. But now we have the tools collectively to be able to move forward with a plan.
Yeah, and I don't have any qualm saying, I mean, a lot of the reason why we went with a contract planner was because we needed help with this topic, and me hiring another fresh new planner that I was gonna train for a year or 2 was gonna delay this even further, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of the reason why we went with Laura was because I need a professional planner who can get this project past the goal line. That was the main reasons we went with Laura, to make that happen. And then I've been holding the ball from her for the last couple of months to get her acclimated, but we can do that. I mean, I think we're at a spot now, 16th Street. We know what needs to get done. The daily stuff is still coming in. I mean, we're still busy. There's
Still applications, yeah.
a lot of applications come through, but we can commit to doing that, putting a rough time frame together, and subject to change, we'll plan together and start attacking those. And a lot of it will be some initial review stuff, things we've already done, but we've got some new members we need to get up. I'm much more excited about the commercial industrial language that we put together and what we've already worked on, and excited to see it go forward than I am the housing stuff. Housing stuff is what it is, right? I mean, it's gonna be cool too, but I'm excited about the regional commercial district and getting some language put together to support that, and, you know, some of the other efforts we've made. The zoning map, I think, is gonna be significant, but we need to have kind of both pieces, residential and industrial commercial, because of the overlap. We've got a lot of residential that's going commercial and commercial is going residential, so we can't just do the zoning for residential, and we can't just do the zone map for industrial commercial. We've got to look at the zoning map for both of those, which means we have to have code language for both in place, right? It does us no good to have a C3 zoning commercial or a regional commercial zoning on the map when we have no language in the development code that explains what it is and what you can and what you can't do there. So the language has got to get written out.
Yeah, absolutely. And whatever we can get put in the can, so to speak, and set aside, will be one less thing we have to get done before we can put the whole package together.
And I don't think a lot of the stuff that's in the can already that we put there has gone bad. I think, to use your analogy, I think that stuff is still good. We just need to pull it out and check the freshness a little bit, maybe tweak it a little bit, but I don't think a lot of that's getting redone. I think we're just doing a quick review, but there's other aspects of it that we still need to.
But just to get it into a final format. And then that gives us an opportunity then, because my intention is to, when we do get it in the final format, is to sit and go through the entire document and review it for as one last time. And that's a lot of effort, but I also see that as being the opportunity to having it as a cohesive single document, as one that has had to use these documents many times in my career.
Yeah,
I hear you.
the formatting, that's part of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I think any one of us with spare time could go through and format a document. And I understand, like, you guys have time constraints, you know, you're working on billable hours, but that's something one of us with Word could do, you know. I would think 20 hours or less, you know, so it's conceivable that could be done in a month, 2 months' time. But the problem is, like, we can't collaborate on it outside of this meeting. We can't have like a working draft, live draft document.
Well, I was going to ask if we could have work groups, like working meetings or something like that outside of the scheduled, does it have to be a public meeting? The public understands that we're doing this, because sometimes, you know, like get together on Saturday, we've got 4 hours, you know, I've done that at the municipality I worked for in Illinois, so. And it was just kind of like, okay, we got to dig into this just because it's such a heavy lift, and an hour or two is not going to do as much. But I'm also willing to volunteer to format or do whatever could be helpful to get it to be in a more usable version.
No, excuse me, but is it formatting or is it content?
It's both, but like, you can't get at the content if the format is so wonky. I mean,
There's been some significant section numbering changes and things like that, which makes it real difficult to work your way through the document.
references, cross-references.
And so that's fairly difficult to do that with the document that's fragmented.
Where we went, where I think it started going sideways, and we've talked about this a little, it was when we started taking entire sections of code from another city and state and just started wholesale copy pasting them into our code and then trying to do a quick reference to it. And it wasn't just the formatting was different, it was all the reference numbers were different.
It was
The layout was
language.
different.
Definitions were different.
The definitions, so we've stripped that out, and now we're going through section by section, and we're updating our code as opposed to implementing somebody else's code. So it is more, I would argue it's much more content driven right now is what's getting looked at, is content. The formatting is secondary, and we'll look at it quickly after.
Oh,
Okay.
The other question I have is, you're mentioning, so what do you mean we can't collaborate outside of this meeting? I mean, why can't we collaborate, create something, then talk about it in a meeting where public can access.
Six parte. I proposed that years ago that, a couple of us peel off in a work group. We bring our work before the commission in a public meeting so the public can discuss. It's publicly voted on, but even though, the work is proposed kind of behind the scenes, and that legal shot that down. So it can be one of us who's corresponding with Chris, corresponding with the city, who then can put it in the agenda for us to discuss and vote on in this meeting. But we can't, they won't let us collaborate outside of it.
We can have work groups. I mean, it doesn't have to be still a public meeting, but we could have a work session as the commission meeting with a set agenda. The agenda would be work session. We could work through stuff. But I have no expectation that anyone or a group of you is going to sit down and write development code, right? I mean, there's people that have degrees and master's degrees that go through and have been working in this for 10, 20 plus years and understand how development codes need to work and what the language needs to be, and they know the legal background of it and the jargon that needs to be there. And so I much more see this body as being the review body that's reviewing the work that the planners are doing, as opposed to generating content that's going to go into the code. Now, again,
Yeah.
generating ideas and concepts, like we want language on noise and dust and all these types of control, and that's the type of language we want. Those are great suggestions, but really.
Well, to my point though, like
to bring
those things have been brought up numerous times, but nothing's happened with them.
Who's been here to do them?
Exactly. We are. We could do that work. It wouldn't take a lot to write up some language in a document. It's not a final form. It's going to go through COG for them to, put some polish on it. But, that's what I'm saying is I'm not sure. I don't even know how to review the entire document of the draft of where we're at right now to even have my own judgment call on, well, we could spend the next 2 meetings going over XYZ topics and clean it up a little so that we feel more comfortable that what we get back from COG is going to be like workable, usable. Because we have gone back and forth with them over things like this, and it's, it seems unnecessary. If we can just head off some of it,
Yeah, I think we'll have our hands full with commercial industrial code. I'll get an update on where we're at with the residential, get that moving forward. If it feels like there's nothing on commercial industrial to work with and we want to dab on some of the residential and clean it up a little bit, I mean, we can look at that, but I think we'll have plenty of work to do on the commercial industrial still. So, again, I'm just gonna keep it simple and talk it up to staffing and not go a lot more details than that, but the planning that happens at the city is one of the many things that happens under my purview. And when I'm having to do all of the day-to-day planning on my own, in addition to my full-time job, which is running everything else, there's gonna be things that don't years, these things aren't getting done. And
I understand.
I can't dedicate 20, 30 hours a week to planning.
I don't want to speak for my fellow commissioners, but I'm just kind of chomping at the bit because we haven't done anything for 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, I think I was just thinking, like, I feel underutilized. Like, how can I be better, be of more service to the community? And maybe it's because we haven't met for the last few months, and people have asked me, like, how's it going? And it's like, we haven't met. And they're like, nothing's happening. And I was like, I don't know. So I guess I agree. Just I'm ready to dig in and do what I can.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's greatly appreciated.
But what you're saying about it, even if we created content to use in some code document, is there some other organization that could override what we put in there?
COG usually comes back with like a redlined document that shows the changes they suggest or are implementing, or changes that we want to see. And Chris has done that in the past too, and that's what we review, and then we discuss changes, we vote on those changes,
I
So
mean,
nobody would like be overriding or erasing, in large swaths of things that we've already discussed.
yeah, I mean, big picture, anything in our development code has to be reviewed by Department of Land Conservation Development. So at the end of the day, they're the state agency that has oversight over development codes within the state of Oregon. Any changes that we make, we have to notify them 30 days ahead of time to give them time to review it before our hearing. And they will often write a letter and say, this provision needs revised, this provision needs revised. And so if it is something that's in direct contrast to a state rule or law, usually the rules, they'll let us know prior to the hearing and we'll have to actually go in and fix those things. But they're not helping to develop, like I said, they have their model code language they put out there. And that's what they want people to use. And if you're gonna vary from that, they want an explanation as to why you're varying from their model code that they've already provided, right? So they're not gonna rewrite code language for everybody. They're gonna say, this is different than the model code language we put out there. Why is it different? And we have to be able to say, well, this is why, and it works better in Philomath, and it's not going to, result in fewer homes for Philomath or fewer, more expensive, whatever. I mean, we have to be able to.
But mostly we've had questions about the things that they've written us, like they're not well-defined, they're kind of more ideas than your code language shall be thus and so. So they've been back and forth with them too.
Yeah, on the climate friendly equitable area topic specifically, there were definitely minimum requirements. And then there were a lot of recommendations. And then over a year's time, a lot of those recommendations became requirements. It was like, that wasn't in the original bill. Oh no, we've added rules, we've changed the rules. And so that climate friendly equitable area soon went from like, this is the requirements, like these are the requirements. And a lot of these are the now requirements were things that we intentionally didn't didn't want to have to do,
But some cities chose to react quicker to those changes and implemented them in ways that wouldn't disturb how they've already planned their cities. We're kind of following the goalposts as they move.
on the second round, we were the first city to implement the climate friendly equitable area. We were in front, we adopted everything first. But the changes that have come after that, we've not implemented because we've not had a planner making those changes. And we're changing our development code, we're gonna update our code, so we'll implement it then, and here we are 3 years later, and we haven't made those changes yet.
Yeah.
So, but the original stuff, we were right on top of it.
Yeah, we're trying to play by the rules. And some of our neighboring cities are like, yeah, your rules can be over there. We're not doing anything to our downtown area.
Yeah,
Okay.
Are we expecting more rules to come down?
yes, yeah.
Yeah,
This is the new normal.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, once you give a State Department, sorry DLC if you're listening to this recording at some point, but once you give a State Department broad brush authority to change rules and implement policy into local governance and local land use planning, it's like caps off that, container of Pringles is gone, right? And it's like, once you pop, you can't stop. They're just gonna go, 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 go. And I'm not being overly flippant. I think at a state level.
Yeah, and there's change staff on just housing and policy, and so it's moved in that direction. That's gonna be
And
their
this
focus.
is expected to probably change again if a new administration comes in with new executive orders.
I mean, a lot of it's a push on just, more housing, right? Governor
Right.
Kotek pushed, and rightly so, right? We need more housing, and we set some goals, and she gave direction to Department of Land Conservation Development to make changes to make home building in Oregon quicker, faster, more affordable, et cetera, right? And so that's what they've done, is made up these rules to try to influence that. And some of them are great and some of them aren't so great. And some of them hurt some people and some of them help other people. And it's just new rules, but because we've been in the middle of this update, or because we were at the onset of this update anyway, we've just kind of been stocking them up and stockpiling them up, and we haven't gotten into where we're having hearings on individual ones and any of that. We've just been stockpiling them. But we'll get through it.
Well, I mean, the government, even state government, moves at a glacial pace anyway, right? So,
Not on this
I mean,
stuff.
not on this stuff.
Not on this stuff. Not when you give it to the department
I
head.
was just thinking, we ought to be able to create what we think we need, and they can follow us for a change. I don't,
That's kind of the dynamic for the process is like, I think the changes are in response to what they see a lot of cities doing in reaction to their last set of changes. So yeah, it's the back and forth, you know, and it's a lot of the bigger cities that are playing that game. And so, you know, a town like Philomath is kind of, we're not driving, you know.
The challenge here we have in Philomath is we are part of the Corvallis
Right.
urban area. So we're not treated with the state on the planning level like a city of 6,000 people. We're treated like Corvallis is. And so that was one of the aha moments over the last couple of years that I've become aware of that makes a lot of this very, very difficult. And that's what Chris was saying, that there was things that they come down. It makes no sense for us because he wasn't joking when he says 4-story buildings down College Street. That's not a joke. That's literally what they're wanting us to
Commercial ground
do.
floor.
Yeah, the commercial ground floor. Yeah, it's a great idea, but it may be a great idea for a population center like Corvallis, but not Philomath. But because the state has put us into this Corvallis urban area, we get thrown these things. And that's the tip of the iceberg.
is there
How's that?
some way to break out of that? I mean, we can be a separate entity like we really are.
We could move.
Yeah.
It's regional planning, right? I mean, they group regions together and then they funnel money to help with regional problems. And a lot of it's geared towards transportation, right? Because transportation is regional, it's not jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So a lot of it gets geared to transportation dollars. Transportation, for better or worse, traditionally has led development. And as of recently, housing is now kind of coming in, and I would say that housing and need for housing is driving development. And not just like development as a construction, but like rules for development is now led by the need for more dense, smaller footprint, i.e. more affordable housing options. And so a lot of the code changes we're seeing are a direct result of the state's emphasis to try to create more housing units. Which means same urban growth boundary, right? And now you just have to fit a lot more houses in that same area. So that's what a lot of the rules are requiring us to do.
No more big R1 lots.
No.
Yeah. I think we've talked this one through
Yeah,
for
I
the
did
evening.
One
Is there-
more
you got one more
question,
question?
yeah. So is it the intention that, or the grand plan or goal to have the commercial, industrial, and residential together, rewritten, ready to go, to do public outreach, public hearings and everything, and approved by the end of the year, or?
Yes.
Okay, and going back to Tim's request for kind of a plan of how we get there, even if we have additional delays with the residential portion of the audit and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
just want
hopefully
to,
this time next
clarify that.
month, we'll have a better idea on residential, what the timetable is gonna look like for that, so.
okay,
Yeah, so we'll bring back, we'll meet next month. If nothing else, we'll go through the update that we're gonna go through in just a minute on what we've been working on.
cool.
So you can update on those, and then we'll try to put a skeleton schedule together for the commercial industrial, and hopefully I'll have an answer on the residential, so. And I'll just say, I appreciate your efforts, I appreciate the energy and you chomping at the bit, I'm right there with you. So we'll get going on it this year.
Okay, so let's move on to planning and activity report.
Wanna do that?
Yeah, thank you. I'll just go through the list here. So I think it's page 21 of the agenda. Quite a few applications, and been very steady in the planning department. First one on the top just talks about a street vacation, and what that means is it's reverting public land to private. And how that reverts is it's a very specified process. You have a question?
I'm sorry. I'm not sure what the proper protocol, but yeah, I had a question. I noticed that one doesn't seem to exist on the website yet. Has
Yeah.
26 not been created yet, or?
Yeah, and I'm actually glad you brought that up. So we do not post those until they're deemed complete. So
Oh.
application review process for anyone that's kind of new is usually you submit an application to the planning division. There's a mandated 30-day process that those can be utilized to review. And what we're looking for is, do they have plans? Is the application fee paid? Is the application form signed? Just the very basic information available to start that review process. So they'll get held off the website until they're deemed complete, and then public notice goes out. So this one's just not quite there at that stage yet.
Well, I just noticed that, another question here is, so the digits 26, that represents the year that the application was created?
Year, yep, submitted.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 2026 doesn't exist yet then, because nothing's been.
This is the first file, I believe, that was submitted in 26. Yes, first file. Yeah.
We use the numbering system that's in Excel, which is what we're using for both building permits and planning permits. So it, for the most part, will follow, but like if we get an application that gets canceled, it just won't show up, and so there may be a number skip or something on there. Like if you ask me what 2601 and 2602 were, I don't know, but I could go look and see what they were, but this is the first one that we're actually, they might have been like a pre-application or something else that we just.
So in other words, there's limited view initially, then it's only later that it's public.
Yeah, if we do pre-application meetings with folks, we typically let people tell their own story rather than us saying, hey, there's gonna be a new Burger King in town, or we usually let people know there's gonna be a new Burger King in town, if that was the case. No, I'm not talking to anybody at Burger King. We usually, there's definitely preliminary conversations that happen with staff to figure out what they need to do and get the ball rolling. But once the application is deemed complete, essentially at that point, it's public. And so at that point, we've been on the website, we let neighbors know, whatever public notice is required. And so we we typically advise the applicant as well. It's like, we're gonna release, blah, blah, blah. If you wanna get your story out there now, tell your story, but this is gonna go public and we're gonna do the public notice on Monday is when the public notices go out. So.
Sorry, thank you.
No, it's a good question.
Yeah.
And even, if you will, even when we did this, we started providing this level of detail. I kind of had a hard time with the planning commission. Like, if we're gonna give you this level of detail in the meetings like this, then there'll be times where we can't tell you the name of the applicant, or we can't divulge some information, and you'll just need to respect that and go both ways. So we'll give you as much information as we can and answer what questions we can, but there are times where we're gonna withhold some information just out of respect for the applicant.
I did notice that there were some documents that had redaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, phone numbers, emails, signatures, we try to redact information like that.
Yeah, so street vacation, reverting public land to private land. These are usually reviewed in a two-step hearing process. So this would be one that would move to the planning commission as the first review party with a recommendation to city council for their final decision. So not quite complete. These street vacations, they require quite a lot of consent and signatures from surrounding property owners. They must have approval and consent from anybody that touches the piece of property that's proposed to be vacated. And then from there on out, the state law says a certain area of surrounding property owners. So it's only incomplete because there is a number of signatures that have to be collected, and it just hasn't been collected yet and submitted.
All that'll be done before it comes before us?
Yes.
Okay. So do we have a approximate timeline?
None of the signatures have been submitted yet. So
Oh, okay.
it's still
So
fine.
month.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
at the very least.
Okay.
Yeah. Next one on the list, item number 2, there was a 3-parcel partition submitted by Mill Pond Building LLC. So this is adjacent to Mill Pond subdivision, phases 1 and 2. So this is a part of a master plan phased development. What this partition does is it creates properties along the proposed phasing lines. And that allows the developer or anybody who owns land to gain financing on one of the parcels and move essentially a phase or parcel forward with a subdivision completion. So the partition here is just intending to break off property along the approved phase line so that subdivisions by those phases could be created down the road. So essentially for financing purposes. That one's noted here as incomplete. This one has now been moved to complete, and that will start through the process. So, more update to be on that. That will be a staff decision. So your next update on that one will just be when that tentative partition plat is approved. Item 3, there is a variance application submitted. This one's on hold. This one again is a part of a kind of a master plan development with storage, gravel, outdoor area, RV, parking, few moving pieces to this one. So these variances and applications that you will likely see from this applicant will be modifications or completing conditions of approval from those original applications.
Gloria Bay is the company that owns the self-storage and the RV park, and then the area in between the self-storage and the RV park. They want to do some self-storage. They don't want to pave all of that with asphalt, and so they're asking for variance to do gravel. In their original approval, it said that they would be required to submit for a variance before that part of the development could be completed. And so that's where that at this point is. They're ready to put some self-storage RVs and boats and trailers and stuff, but they got to get this variance in place for it. So it's part of that whole master plan.
And that's staff
We knew this
level.
was coming. It was a matter of when they were going to be ready to do it.
And that's staff level approval.
On this one, the application's evolving, so there'll be other pieces, and I anticipate it coming before the planning commission when it's all said and done, yeah. Okay, then moving along on item 4, there was a minor modification to an approved subdivision. So what that essentially means in plain English is that there was a change to a subdivision, and then also a property line adjustment. This one's associated with Knoll Heights subdivision. So essentially there was an access way to an abutting parcel that didn't have street frontage. They wanted to change where that access way was located within the subdivision. So it kind of moved from the south, went to more midway. The abutting property owner still has adequate access to their site. It'll eventually be a street, so that neighboring property owner could further develop theirs as well. So the modification was just moving where the access strip was located within the subdivision approved lots, as well as property line adjustment to accommodate that. So that one has since been approved. It's moving forward. Property line adjustment, preliminary maps and legal descriptions that are associated with that have been submitted and reviewed. So that project is well on its way going forward. Item 5, that one has since been withdrawn, so I'll skip over that. That was another street vacation that consent signatures were not able to be obtained, so the applicant had withdrawn that application. Item 6 is related to my earlier update with the Mill Pond Crossing Phase 2, those property line adjustment. There was a whole series of applications that were assigned to those that were approved by staff. And then again, those are moving forward through recording the final deeds. Item 7, there was a setback reduction, so I think that brought up to your commissioner's point. There was a few buildings that were built and had some minor encroachment into the required setbacks, so a variance of a minor nature was approved to allow that to occur. Item 8 and 9, these were both commercial tenant reviews. So the purpose of these, person occupies a building, business space. We take a look at it. And the purpose of that review is essentially to make sure ADA access is adequate. Any sort of conditions of approval, we're checking in, making sure that those are all up to date. Making sure they have bike parking, pretty minor in nature. Landscaping. Mostly just a double check to make sure are they still focused. And then the last one is just a 2-parcel partition. So this was a residential land division, created 2 lots. That one has since had 2 building permits for each of the lots were created. Also, when I do construction's underway on one of those already. So seeing some housing built out there. In terms of permits, lots of permits. I think that
Yeah.
spring weather got people excited and into the building and submitting for anything from accessory dwelling units to additions, remodels. A lot of new signage permits have been submitted lately associated with new construction that has occurred. Great thing.
That's huge.
Yeah, how does that compare to 2024?
It's 2024.
And this is 2025, says 371 permits.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. We're way up. We're probably
Double?
up 40, 50%.
Okay, significantly.
We're back, baby.
I did residential electrical and mechanical this year, so I'm one of those.
Yeah, I've got one of those as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you do the math, you figure how many is that per day? I mean, it's running across Leilani's desk every day.
3 or 4 see requests to go out there and have people looking at the structures that we built. So things are moving.
Yeah, and we added some hours for Leilani, so she's working Fridays now as well. She's not working full days, but she's here 5 days a week now.
She's
So
she's here first thing in the morning till 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
She didn't used to work Fridays, but
Right.
starting in January, we added Fridays for 6 hours, so she can help contractors come to get their permits before the weekend and help us see if everybody wants their occupancy right before the weekend so they can move in on the weekend. So Fridays traditionally were pretty busy, and not having her here was a bit of a hardship on the rest of the staff. So we convinced her, paid her a little more money, obviously, to come in on Friday.
Do we have any new business at this time?
Okay, good question. So the updates for 2025, or the planning updates, are those from the last time we met as a commission? What's the date range on these planning updates that you went from 1 through 10?
Those have been since I came on board, so I imagine those are from the last time that you met.
Okay.
We went from the list on the last agenda to
Awesome.
more recent.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We love getting updates.
You love getting updated?
We love hearing about the stuff that doesn't come across our desk. You know, we just want to know what's going on. So really appreciate seeing those every month. Yeah,
Well,
thank
if you
you.
see it in a different format or hear more or less detail, just let me know.
That's great.
Okay, if there's no objection, go ahead and call this a meeting.
Thanks again, everybody.
This case is up. One of the